A very good day, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're watching us from, and thank you for joining us this morning. It's a Friday, the 21st of October, and of course, I'm very glad that you have chosen to join us this morning. This is SMART24 TV, where we drive your business. My name is Anthony, and you're watching Financial Markets. Here we analyze and look at the global stocks, as well as the local and regional stocks, and in particular also we look for opportunities for investing your savings safely in the financial market space wherever you are. The show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. And Altex is saying now you can buy bonds across East Africa by simply dialing *29092# and following the prompts, so that you can be able to buy or sell some of your bonds at your most favorable interest rates there on Altex East Africa. The market opens at 15 minutes past the hour of 8 and closes at 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Altex East Africa doing something new. Now let's straight away get into the stock market. Now Wall Street is warming up to small cap, of course, stocks, and the markets yesterday began slightly on a negative note, but as the day went on, the market started to improve. The S&P 500 by yesterday evening had about 3,720.42 on its value, and that we are seeing also about 0.68% appreciation on the S&P 500. The Dow Jones had about 30,746.87, and that was a 1.06% gain there on the daily trades on Dow Jones. Nasdaq, the technology heavy index, had about 10,798.11 US dollars on the index, and had about a 1.07% appreciation by the close of the trading day yesterday. Looking at also Russell 2000 as well, moved in the positive direction at 1,731.80. And of course, the US stock market is a benchmark index, benchmark performer, definitely that gives us a little bit of what's happening in the global economy. Now, there was a newsletter by Mr. Jed Blicker, a reporter focused on markets on Yahoo Finance, and he says that the volatility on Wall Street will continue on Wednesday, and continued on Wednesday, this time to the downside. The US stocks closed in the red, eating into the prior 2 days' gains. Of course, the previous 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, were pretty awesome and bullish on the US market, but Wednesday actually declined those efforts. Now, while the small capitalization Russell 2000 index declined the most, down by 1.7%, it has outperformed the major indices, including the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones recently. It also, of course, this performance has caught the attention of Wall Street, which is laser focused on the impacts of the strengthening US dollar and the surging Treasury note yields. Both of those factors likely to led to the Wednesday's decline in the US stock markets, and the small cap companies, which generally have market capitalizations less than $2 billion US dollars, tend to be less affected by the current the currency inflation fluctuations, especially with the strengthening dollar, than the larger capitalization companies beyond $2 billion US dollars. Now, the stronger dollar is also less likely to take a toll on such companies, the small cap companies, and of course, they are more likely to do business in the US rather than overseas. While Russell 2000 sold off sharply from mid-August to early October, with the other averages, of course, it didn't break down through its June low, and while the so-called major averages did, looking at the Nasdaq and the Dow Jones as well as the S&P 500. 500. Russell outperformed most of these other bigger companies, and on September 26th, we are saying that it was put on the most low risk, and of course, days ahead of the Dow and 2 weeks ahead of the lagging Nasdaq as well on the 26th of September. This relative outperformance of the small caps is catching the attention of Wall Street in the United States stock market because, as Liz Young, one of the head investments at Sophie, said that the small caps have outperformed the large caps coming out of a recession 6 out of the last 6 times. And Wall Street might debate whether we are in a recession, but it is undeniable that many stocks have declined this year in the United States. Until the larger cap companies like the Amazon, Coca-Cola, and the like listed on the US stock markets via the bigger indexes like the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 stop making lower lows, small caps are looking like the better play at the moment and have the potential to lead the general market higher. Definitely, that, of course, is the analysis from the US stock market. The smaller caps are doing pretty much better than the bigger caps at the moment. And of course, the US market can be penetrated. You don't have to be a United States citizen to become an investor in the US stock market. There are several ways. And here in Uganda, we still have some stockbrokers who can get you stock across the United States as well. And you can take advantage of some of these opportunities that are coming in the US stock market. Of course, as we realize still the decline in performance of the bigger indexes there on the US stock market. The US stock market wasn't alone. Poor performance was also registered here back in East Africa, particularly speaking about the Uganda Securities Exchange. Of course, the Uganda Securities Exchange performed extremely well on Tuesday, and also Wednesday was a good day of trading there on the Uganda Securities Exchange. However, Thursday didn't look so good on the stock market here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. And now let's have a look at some of the details here from the Uganda Securities Exchange and find out what exactly took place on the market. Now, closing the day was about, only 3 participants who are out of the 18 listed companies had participation in the trades, and the day ended with 3 gainers and 6 losers, unfortunately. Now, the gainers were led by Stanbic Bank, who came back or bounced back after losing on the particularly previous day of trading. He led the gainers at 5% appreciation in price, closing at 21.0 Ugandan shillings from 20 shillings stock price. Here, Stanbic Bank was also followed by Equity. Equity Bank Limited also had a 1.49% on their price, and Centum Investments Company as well had a 0.79% that was gained on their stock price. On the losing side, we had Kenya Commercial Bank, who came out last with an end of day price depreciation of close to 2.84% and closing at 1,109. Close in the bottom losers at about a 1.08% loss there on the market, and East African Breweries Limited lost about 0.98%, as well as Jubilee Holdings at a 0.64%. Because of these trades, of course, we had some effect on the All-Share Index, which is the benchmark for the Uganda Stock Exchange, after we realized a decline of 3.94 points, and that was a 0.31 percentage decline in the points on the All-Share Index, which is the major index here at the Uganda Stock Exchange, tracking the aggregate performance of all the listed companies on the stock exchange there. However, the OSHA index is still on a one-week gain, meaning slightly we've still performed much better exactly a week ago. Comparing those figures, we have added about 3.5% on the value of our stock, and still in terms of 1 month, we have also gained about 0.94%. However, on overall year-to-date loss has slightly gone up by about 0.5 from 11.2 to 11.7%. So still pretty much there's still a lot of work to do on our year-to-date performance there on the exchange. Now, looking at the local company index, on the other hand, it appreciated because of the gain, of course, of Stanbic Bank, and the local company index went up 0.09% and moved to 271.77 points, closing yesterday's trades, making a one-week gain of close to 0.6% and a four-week loss rather, still of 0.48%, and year-to-date a loss of 16.29%. Briefly, that's the outlook of the markets on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Of course, today is the last day of trading of the week. We are very hopeful that probably things will be much, much better. And we are looking forward to a better week even next week, of course, as we open the trading. Let's have a particular look at the Stanbic Bank stock here and see where we could actually have to take opportunity and make use of it. Now, Stanbic gained by 1 shillings, and that was a 5% increase from 20 shillings to 21 shillings. However, that had a little effect on their market capitalization, which was maintained at 1.07 trillion Ugandan shillings. And currently, they have about 4.98% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market, and they are the 5th most valuable on the stock market here in Uganda. Yesterday, they had a total volume of about 53 million shares that were transacted. What a volume there of shares at Stanbic. And these were valued at 1.11 billion. That's a pretty huge movement there for Stanbic. Over 53 million shares were transacted on Stanbic, and this happened with a gain from 20 shillings to over 21.0 shillings. Of course, Stanbic Bank is now maintaining and rather solidifying its position as the #1 most traded on stock on the entire exchange for the past 3 months. Now, currently, Stanbic, within the last 3 months, we are seeing that the company now has about 79.5 million shares so far transacted on the company's stock for the last 3 months. We are dating back from 21st of July to the current date, 20th of October. And within this period, the volume we have looked at is 79.5 million shares. No company has done that so far. And of course, kudos to Stanbic Bank there, and definitely for providing investors with such opportunity. The volume high was achieved yesterday, 53 million shares. Now, that is what the stock market is capable of. You have a company, one single company, trading close to 53 million shares, and these shares are valued at 1.1 billion Ugandan shillings. What a performance from Stanbic Bank there, and definitely we hope to look at a further gain in price and better performance from Stanbic. I am supporting Stanbic as I think the best company at the moment so far amongst all the financial institutions that are listed on the stock exchange. My point of view, of course, is based on their performance in as regards the volume. They have proved that they can beat the market by volume and turn over with this kind of participation. Of course, you can say this is a one-off trade, but Stanbic has had a fair share of participation in the market. Look at the last 10 days of trading. On 20th, we are looking at 53 million. On the 19th, we have about 1.1 million. We're talking about shares, the volume of shares that have been transacted on this single company. And then on the 18th of October, we are looking at 49,000, 60,000 on the 17th. 14th, we had 180,000, 329,000 on the 13th. What more do you need to prove? Definitely Stanbic has outperformed many other companies. Comparing this with other, honestly speaking, with other financial institutions, Bank of Baroda, of course, is coming in as a close competitor, but still far off. Bank of Baroda is still at an 11% year-to-date loss and a pretty much smaller market capitalization of just 213 billion, yet having a higher price of 85, meaning they have smaller shares that are floated on the exchange. And also the activity has kind of declined in the last few weeks, and they have been pushed from #1 position in terms of the most traded on stock in the last quarter to about the 4th position in terms of the most traded on stock. So still, Stanbic is doing pretty much better than Bank of Baroda. Equity Bank, pretty expensive stock, 1,400. Huge market capitalization, of course, because of the price at 5.24 trillion, but a pretty poor performance still on year to date. About 11.4% has been lost on the company, and in terms of activity, they are nowhere. So definitely Stanbic beats equity by liquidity and trading activity and intensity. We're looking at also DFCU Bank. Activity, not so good. Average activity, and then the market capitalization is still pretty small as well, and price is more expensive. So all factors, of course, are pointing towards Stanbic. So what are you waiting for? Buy yourself some stock in Stanbic Bank. Consider just 21 shillings to get yourself a share at Stanbic Bank. I'm pretty sure you won't regret that. Also, the dividend policy for the company. The company has tried to maintain a good record of issuing dividends. You remember that suspension of banks not being able to pay out dividends in the past few years, since, of course, July 2020, when Bank of Uganda had put a suspension on all banks in order to reserve capital, afraid, of course, of the COVID recovery and other financial pressures that were coming on, like inflation. The bank was not able to release its dividend. But immediately after the ban was lifted, the company was able to issue over 100 billion worth of dividends back to its shareholders. So it maintained a good dividend policy. It is dealing so well in the financial services sector. You can tell by their books and the assets, of course. The books are pretty open and transparent. You can see through them. And definitely they are one of the companies I could recommend for you to be able to invest in at the moment. Quickly, let's have a look at the summary here. Of course, the market had a pretty good improvement in the volume because of Stanbic stock that was traded with a total of over 53,073,000 shares that were recorded on average. And these were valued at 1.12 billion Ugandan shillings. Of course, even the turnover improved, courtesy of Stanbic Bank Uganda. Let's move swiftly to the Nairobi market and have a look at what's happening on the Nairobi market. Nairobi yesterday was also pretty good. It has been pretty good this week, at least for Nairobi. Karibu sana for the Kenyan people there. Of course, the stock market in Nairobi looks quite healthy at the moment, with over 46 companies participating in trading there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. We had about 19 gainers and 16 bottom losers on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The top gainer was Nairobi Business Ventures, the second day in a row. Remember, he was the top gainer on Wednesday, and now even Thursday trades ended with Nairobi Business Ventures as a top gainer. He was followed by Samia Africa. By the way, NBV gained by about 5.38% and closed at 3.92 Kenyan shillings closing price. Whereas Samia Africa, who followed a suit in the second position, came in at a 4.81% price appreciation. Sassini Tea and Coffee also was another top gainer at a, let's see, at a 3.74% gain on the market. Utumi Supermarket came in at a 3.7% gain on the daily trades there in Nairobi yesterday. On the losing side, unfortunately, Sanlam, second day in a row, losing at about 8.5% depreciation in price, and Kakuzi as well lost at 7.14%. The NSE All-Share Index inched up 0.07 points, second day in a row of gaining at 0.05%. Appreciation closing at exactly 129.80 points, representing a one-week loss of about 0.42%, however, and a four-week loss of 3.82%. Of course, Nairobi is still resilient and providing different opportunities. If you're out here in Uganda and you want to trade in Nairobi, definitely they are giving you the chance. You can do that through your stockbroker. That is some stockbrokers like SBG, like you have in Dyer & Blair. Definitely they have subsidiaries in Kenya that can help you access the Kenyan stock market as well. Now, in summary, we had close to 4,222,700 shares that were recorded in Nairobi in about 930 deals, corresponding to a market value of 80 million Kenyan shillings. Compared with the previous day, there was a decline in the volume by 42% and another decline in turnover by 48% as well. That's it from the Kenyan market. Of course, you can always follow up on these markets via our website at www.smart24tv, or you can stay tuned on Smart24 and you can still catch up with your latest. My name is Anthony. I'll catch up with you next week, same time, same place. I have an interview ahead. Of course, we managed to talk to the SBG trading manager, Mr. Kimuli Musazi, and we were talking about the different options of investing during inflation periods. Of course, as we are struggling to make money, struggling to keep money, of course, we're struggling also with which options of investments. Should we put in bonds? Should we put in stocks? Everything looks unstable. But we had a very good conversation at the SBG offices with Mr. Musazi, which I want you to check out after the break. See you next time. Bye for now.